One of the indispensable requirements for a marriage to be valid is that there must be a marriage ceremony. The law imposes no specific form or religious rite for the marriage vows, but it is clear what the ceremony must include. The marriage ceremony takes place through the appearance of the man and the woman before the solemnizing officer and their personal declaration that they take each other as husband and wife. This must be in the presence of not less than 2 witnesses of legal age. This requirement is indispensable. The absence of a marriage ceremony will make the marriage null and void. In fact, there will have been no marriage at all. The mere signing of a marriage contract by the man and the woman without the presence of a solemnizing officer makes the marriage void from the beginning. A mere signing of papers without the marriage ceremony makes it so that no marriage ever took place. What about marriages by proxy? A marriage by proxy is one where one of the parties to a marriage is merely represented by a delegate or a friend. There is no personal appearance by the man and the woman before a solemnizing officer in a marriage by proxy. Because of this, because the law requires a marriage ceremony with the appearance of the contracting parties before the solemnizing officer and their personal declaration that they take each other as husband and wife, a proxy marriage is void under Philippine law. If the proxy marriage is solemnized in the Philippines, the marriage is void because our family code requires the physical presence of both parties. However, the same family code states that marriages solemnized outside the Philippines, if valid in accordance with the laws of the country where they were solemnized, shall also be valid here. This seems to mean that if a proxy marriage is lawful and valid in a foreign country, and a Filipino or Filipinos validly married through a proxy marriage in accordance with that country's laws, then that proxy marriage will also be considered valid in the Philippines. Legal writers say that the marriage by proxy is considered celebrated at the place where the delegate or the proxy appears. This raises an interesting question, which as far as I know has not been ruled on by the Supreme Court. If the place of the marriage by proxy is, for example, in a state like the US, state of Montana, which allows proxy marriage, while the Filipino marrying by proxy is actually located in the Philippines, is such a proxy marriage valid if one or both of the parties was in the Philippines when the marriage took place abroad? It seems the answer, unless the marriage is struck down for being against public policy, is that the proxy marriage would be valid since the place of its celebration was not actually in the Philippines. The argument in favor of its validity is that the interpretation of the family code allows it, and that public policy leans toward the validity of the marriage, which the state upholds as the foundation of the family and society. The argument against validity is that proxy marriages, when the parties are actually in the Philippines, circumvent the public policy reasons of the family codes in requiring a marriage ceremony for marriages in the Philippines.
Whichever the case, whether a proxy marriage or a problem with your marriage ceremony, it is important to remember, if the validity of a marriage is questioned, that it is not up to you to decide whether your marriage is legally null and void, particularly if you want to remarry. The law says that the absolute nullity of a previous marriage may be invoked for purposes of remarriage on the basis solely of a final judgment declaring such previous marriage void. This means that even if there was something wrong with your marriage ceremony so that it was invalid, you need to get a court declaration of nullity of that marriage if you want it to be clear for you to be remarried. A case needs to be filed in court to get the final judgment. Without such a court declaration, the second marriage would be bigamous and would itself be null and void. Thank you for watching. For more videos, you can watch this channel. For more content and online consultations, you can find us on lawyerphilippines.org.